Jane stood tall, looking her mother-in-law straight in the eyes. "I've had enough of your torment and insult," she said, her voice firm but calm. "You are not God who gives children. You have no right to decide who bears a child and who doesn't." Her mother-in-law snarled, but Jane continued. "Do you derive joy in ridiculing me and adding to my pains? I'm already hurting, and your words only make it worse." Jane took a deep breath before delivering the final blow. "The only person who can decide to take another wife is my husband, and not you, his mother. And let me make it clear, he loves me very much, and there is nothing you can do about it." Her mother-in-law's face turned red with rage, but Jane stood her ground. "I deserve respect, and I won't tolerate your cruelty anymore. I am your daughter-in-law, and I demand to be treated with kindness and compassion." Jane and her husband, Maxwell, had been married for 3 years, but their joy was incomplete. Despite their love for each other, they longed for a child to call their own. They had tried everything, from changing their lifestyle to seeking medical help, but nothing seemed to work. They visited several hospitals, and Maxwell underwent various tests, but the results always showed that he was perfectly fine. The doctors then turned their attention to Jane, running a series of tests to determine the cause of their childlessness. The news was devastating. Jane was told that she could never carry a child on her own. The doctor's words hung in the air like a dark cloud, crushing their dreams of starting a family. Jane was heartbroken. She felt like a failure, as if her body had betrayed her. Maxwell tried to comfort her, but he too was struggling to come to terms with the news. They began to explore other options, such as adoption and surrogacy, but the process were lengthy. They felt like they were running out of time, and the pressure was taking a toll on their relationship. One day, after visiting a friend who had recently given birth, Jane broke down in tears. She felt like she was losing herself in the midst of their struggles. Maxwell pulled her close and whispered words of encouragement, reminding her that they were in this together. Jane turned to Maxwell and said, "I want to try again. I want to see another doctor. Maybe there is something we have missed." Maxwell nodded, and they began their search for a new specialist. After weeks of searching, they found a renowned fertility expert who agreed to see them. The doctor listened to their story and reviewed their test results. Maxwell's support and encouragement meant the world to Jane. He was her rock, her confidant, and her partner in every sense of the word. Throughout their journey, he never wavered in his commitment to their relationship and their dreams of children. When the new doctor told them that Jane could never carry a child, Maxwell was devastated, but he didn't show it. Instead, he held Jane close and whispered words of comfort in her ears. "We will get through this together, my love. We will find a way." He constantly reminded her that he loved her, not just for her ability to bear children, but for who she was as a person. He celebrated her strength, her beauty, and her resilience. He made her feel seen and heard, even on her darkest days. Maxwell's positivity was infectious. He had a way of making Jane laugh, even when she felt like crying. He would often surprise her with small gifts or gestures, just to put a smile on her face. He would cook her favorite meals, listen to her favorite music with her, and watch her favorite movies together. Jane's joy was short-lived as her mother-in-law, Maxwell's mother, Mrs. Smith, became a constant source of stress and anxiety. She would visit her son's house unannounced, and her sole purpose was to bash Jane. "When am I going to have a grandchild?" Mrs. Smith would demand, her voice dripping with disdain. "You are the problem, Jane. You are the one who can't give my son a child." Jane would try to explain their struggles with infertility, but Mrs. Smith wouldn't listen. "I don't care about your excuses, Jane. I want a grandchild, and I want one now. You need to figure out how to make it happen." The pressure from Mrs. Smith was relentless. She would call Jane multiple times a day, harassing her about getting pregnant. You are not doing enough, Jane. You need to try harder. I don't care what it takes. Just give me a grandchild. Maxwell tried to intervene, but his mother wouldn't listen. Mind your own business, Maxwell, she would say. This is between Jane and me. Jane felt like she was walking on eggshells, never knowing when Mrs. Smith would strike again. She began to dread her mother-in-law's visits, which were always filled with criticism and belittling comments. One day, Mrs. Smith crossed the line. If you can't give me a grandchild, Jane, then maybe I'll find someone who can, she said, her eyes cold and calculating. I'll bring another woman into this house, and she will give me what you can't. Jane was devastated. She felt like her mother-in-law was threatening to replace her, to erase her from her own marriage. Jane stood tall, looking her mother-in-law straight in the eyes. I've had enough of your torment and insults, she said, her voice firm but calm. You are not God who gives children. You have no right to decide who bears a child and who doesn't. Her mother-in-law snarled, but Jane continued. Do you derive joy in ridiculing me and adding to my pains? I'm already hurting and your words only make it worse. Jane took a deep breath before delivering the final blow. The only person who can decide to take another wife is my husband, not you, his mother. And let me make it clear. He loves me very much and there's nothing you can do about it. Her mother-in-law's face turned red with rage, but Jane stood her ground. I deserve respect and I won't tolerate your cruelty anymore. I am your daughter-in-law and I demand to be treated with kindness and compassion. The room fell silent, with Maxwell's mother sitting in anger. But Jane didn't back down, knowing she had finally found her voice and stood up for herself. She walked away, leaving her mother-in-law to stew in her own bitter emotions. From that day on, Jane felt a sense of liberation, knowing she wouldn't tolerate abuse from anyone, not even her husband's mother. Maxwell's mother sat in the sitting room, fuming with anger. Her face was a storm of frustration. Her hands clenched tightly. She could hardly believe the nerve of Jane. How dare Jane talk back to her in that manner? It was incomprehensible to her that Jane, who had yet to give her a grandchild, would challenge her so boldly. Maxwell's mother seated as she recalled Jane's words. Jane had dared to question her authority, to tell her that she had no right to decide if Maxwell should take another wife. The audacity of it all was staggering. Had Jane forgotten that she was speaking to the woman who had given birth to her husband? Her anger was further fueled by the realization that her friend's daughters-in-law were already raising families of their own, having multiple children, while Jane had not yet managed to give her a single grandchild. It seemed to Maxwell's mother that Jane's failure to meet these expectations were a direct affront to her. And to top it all off, Jane had the nerve to challenge her about a matter as serious as adding another wife into their family. She felt a surge of determination. She would not let Jane's insolence go unpunished. If Jane was so willing to defy her, she would make sure there were consequences. The house suddenly felt too small for her raging emotions. She stood up from the couch with an air of finality, her decision clear in her mind. She walked briskly to her room, her steps echoing her frustration. Once there, she threw open her closet, began packing her bags. Clothes and personal items were hastily stuffed into her suitcase. Each item she packed felt like an act of defiance against Jane's disrespect. She felt a sense of grim satisfaction as she prepared to leave, knowing that she was taking care of the situation in her own way. With her suitcase in tow, Maxwell's mother headed to the front door. She glanced around the house one last time, her anger still simmering. She was determined to return to her own home, away from the disrespect she had faced, and to show Jane that she would not be easily intimidated. She would make sure that Jane understood the gravity of her actions. Maxwell's mother paced around the room, her mind swelling with frustration and disappointment. I need to get my son another wife who can bear me children, but who would fit into this position? As she stewed over her options, a name popped into her head. Tracy. Tracy had been Maxwell's girlfriend before he met Jane. They had dated for 2 years, and Mrs. Smith had always thought highly of her. Tracy and Mrs. Smith had a good relationship back then, and she even had Tracy's number saved in her old address book. She hesitated for a moment. What if Tracy was married now? It was possible after all. Time had moved on, and Tracy's life had taken a different path. But then again, what did she have to lose? She needed to act quickly if she wanted to resolve the situation and hopefully ensure that Maxwell would have the family she had always dreamed of. With determination, Mrs. Smith picked up the phone. Her fingers hesitated over the keypad as she dialed Tracy's number, her mind racing with the possibility of what could come next. The phone rang a few times before someone picked up. "Hello," a familiar voice answered. "Tracy?" Mrs. Smith asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Yes, this is Tracy," came the reply. "It's Mrs. Smith, Maxwell's mother," she said, trying to sound as warm as she could. "I hope I am not catching you at a bad time." "Oh, Mrs. Smith, it's been a while," Tracy said, her voice friendly but with a hint of surprise. "It has," Mrs. Smith agreed. "I was just thinking about you and wanted to catch up. How have you been?" They exchanged pleasantries, and Mrs. Smith found herself relaxing. Tracy seemed genuinely pleased to hear from her, and their conversation flowed easily. After some small talk, Mrs. Smith decided it was time to bridge the subject that had been on her mind. "You know, Tracy," Maxwell's mother began cautiously, "I've been thinking a lot about Maxwell lately, and I am a bit concerned about him and Jane. Things aren't going quite as I hoped." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "Oh, I am sorry to hear that. Is everything all right?" "Well," Mrs. Smith continued, trying to choose her words carefully, "Jane and Maxwell haven't been able to have children, and it's been quite difficult for me to come to terms with that. I know it's a sensitive subject, but I was wondering, how are things with you?" Tracy seemed thoughtful. "I am doing well, actually. I am not married. If that's what you are wondering, I am still single." Mrs. Smith's heart raised with a mix of hope and anxiety. "I see. Well, this might sound a bit forward, but I've been thinking that maybe, just maybe, you and Maxwell might, I don't know, reconsider things. You two were quite happy together before." Tracy laughed softly. "It's interesting you bring that up. I've thought about Maxwell from time to time, but I never imagined reaching out about it. I suppose life has a way of surprising us." Mrs. Smith took a deep breath. "I really believe you two could have something special again. Maxwell is a good man, and he deserves to be happy. And, well, I would really like to see him become a father. I know this is a lot to ask, but would you be open to meeting with him and talking things over?" Tracy's tone was thoughtful. "I appreciate you being so upfront, Mrs. Smith. I have to admit, it's quite a surprising proposal, but I am open to meeting and seeing where things might lead. After all, I still care about Maxwell and want him to be happy." Maxwell's mother felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, Tracy. I'll talk to Maxwell and see if we can arrange a meeting. I just want what's best for him, and I really appreciate your willingness to consider this." As they ended the call, Mrs. Smith felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe this was the solution she had been searching for. She knew it wouldn't be an easy road, but she was ready to do whatever it took to help her son and fulfill her dream of becoming a grandmother. With determination, she set about making plans for the next steps, hopeful that everything would work out according to her plan. Maxwell's mother had been quiet for a few days after her call. Then, out of the blue, she phoned Maxwell and asked him to visit her at the house. She had previously mentioned inviting someone, but Maxwell didn't think much of it until he arrived. When Maxwell walked into the living room, he was taken aback. There, sitting comfortably on the sofa, was Tracy. She was smiling as if they had seen each other just yesterday. Maxwell froze at the door, his heart racing. Tracy, what are you doing here? He demanded, his voice filled with surprise and anger. Tracy turned to face him. Hi, Maxwell. It's been a while. She greeted him warmly, but Maxwell wasn't in the mood of pleasantries. I asked what you are doing here, Tracy, he said sharply. We broke up a long time ago, and I am now a happily married man. Before Tracy could respond, Maxwell's mother interjected. Hold it there, Maxwell, she said firmly. Happily married man without a child to show for it? I invited Tracy here so you both can work things out. Maxwell was stunned. Mom, is this a joke or something? Why are you doing this? I am married for God's sake and I am not interested in any other woman, let alone Tracy. His mother looked at him with a serious expression. Maxwell, I understand you are happy in your marriage, but you and your wife don't have any children. I thought maybe you and Tracy could discuss this and see if there is something that can be done. Maxwell's frustrations was palpable. This is completely out of line. Tracy and I have nothing to talk about. My marriage is my priority now, and I don't want to revisit the past. Tracy remained quiet, her smile fading as she realized the gravity of the situation. Maxwell's mother, seeing that her plan wasn't going as she hoped, sighed and tried to calm the situation. Maxwell, she said softly, I just want what's best for you. I know you are married, but I've always felt there was something unresolved between you and Tracy. I thought this meeting might help. Maxwell's anger began to subside, but he remained firm. Mom, I appreciate your concern, but you have to respect my decision. Tracy and I are part of different chapters in our lives now. I am focused on my wife and our future. Tracy stood up and looked at Maxwell with a mixture of regret and understanding. I didn't mean to cause any trouble, she said quietly. I hope everything works out for you. Maxwell's mother nodded, though she was clearly disappointed. All right, Maxwell, I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had the chance to address any unfinished business. Maxwell and Tracy exchanged a final solemn glance. Tracy then headed for the door, and Maxwell's mother followed her to see her out. When she returned, Maxwell was standing alone in the living room, feeling a mix of relief. He sat down on the sofa, taking a deep breath. The confrontation had stirred up old emotions, but he knew he had to stay focused on his present life. His mother's intentions were good, but he hoped she would understand that some things were better left in the past. Maxwell's mother, after seeing the tension, took a calming approach. She sat down next to Maxwell and apologized. I am truly sorry for intruding into your marriage, Maxwell. I didn't mean to cause any discomfort. I only wanted to help. Maxwell, still visibly shaken, sighed. Mom, I just wish you would let me handle my own life. But okay, I appreciate the apology. To lighten the mood, his mother went into the kitchen and soon came out with a glass of juice. Here, Maxwell, she said, handing him the glass. I thought you might need something to relax. Maxwell took the glass and after a moment's hesitation, drank the juice. It tasted sweet and refreshing, and he felt a slight easing of his tension. However, as the minutes passed, Maxwell began to feel unusually lightheaded. His surroundings seemed to blur, and he struggled to keep his balance. His mother watched with a concealed satisfaction. As Maxwell's condition worsened, she made a quick call to Tracy. Tracy, you can come back now. Tracy, who was waiting outside, received the call and quickly returned to the house. Seeing Maxwell in a disoriented state, she approached him with a concerned look. Maxwell, are you okay? Tracy asked, although she already knew the answer. Maxwell could barely respond, his speech slurred and his movement unsteady. Help him into the bedroom and do what's necessary, Maxwell's mother said. Tracy helped him to his feet and guided him towards the bedroom. Maxwell's mother followed closely behind, ensuring everything went as planned. Once they were in the room, Maxwell lay down on the bed, barely conscious. Tracy looked at Maxwell's mother, who gave a subtle nod of approval. Tracy then proceeded to carry out his mother's plan, taking advantage of Maxwell's compromised state. It was clear that the situation was carefully orchestrated to manipulate Maxwell into something his mother deemed necessary. Maxwell, unaware of what was happening, drifted in and out of consciousness. He felt a strange mix of confusion and helplessness, unable to comprehend what was happening. As the effect of the drug continued to take hold, he could only hope that his nightmare would end soon and that he could regain control of his life. Maxwell woke up surprised, confused, and disoriented. He looked around and saw Tracy in his room, getting ready to leave. "Tracy, what are you doing here?" he asked, shocked. Tracy turned around, smiling sweetly. "You called me back, remember? You asked me to keep you company." Maxwell's eyes widened in denial. "No, I didn't. And how did I end up on the bed?" Tracy shrugged. "You must have forgotten." Maxwell's mind raced. Had his mom and Tracy planned something? He felt a surge of anger and confusion. Maxwell's eyes scanned the room, trying to place together what had happened. He remembered drinking the juice his mom had given him, thinking it was just a normal glass of pineapple juice. But now, he wasn't so sure. "Tracy, I swear, I didn't call you back," Maxwell said, his voice shaking with confusion. "And how did I even end up on the bed? I was sitting on the couch and then I must have fallen asleep or something." Tracy chuckled and walked over to him, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Oh, Maxwell, you are so funny when you are confused. You really don't remember calling me, do you?" Maxwell shook his head, feeling a growing sense of unease. "No, I didn't. And even if I did, which I didn't, why would I ask you to come into my room? Maybe you wanted some company. Maybe you were feeling lonely." Maxwell threw off the covers and got out of the bed, his mind racing with questions. Had his mom really planned this with Tracy? And what was in that juice? He felt a wave of anger wash over him as he confronted Tracy. "Listen, Tracy, I don't know what's going on here, but I want the truth. Did my mom put something in that juice? And did you two plan this together?" Tracy's smile faltered for a moment, and Maxwell saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. But then, her mask slipped back into place and she laughed again. "Oh, Maxwell, you are so paranoid. Your mom just wanted to help you relax, that's all. And as for me, I am just happy to be here with you." Maxwell stormed out of the room, his anger and confusion boiling over. He marched straight to the kitchen where his mom was calmly sipping a cup of tea. "Mom, what have you done?" Maxwell demanded, his voice shaking with rage. "What did you put in my juice?" His mom looked up, an innocent expression on her face. "Oh, Maxwell, what are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Mom," Maxwell shouted. "I know you are behind this, you and Tracy. What's going on?" His mom sighed and put down her tea. "Maxwell, sit down and listen to me. I did what I had to do. I want a grandchild before I die. And since Jane can't give me one..." Maxwell's eyes widened in horror. "No, Mom, please tell me you didn't. You can't be serious." His mom nodded, a determined look on her face. "I am dead serious, Maxwell. I need a grandchild, and if Jane can't provide one, then maybe Tracy can." Maxwell felt like he had been punched in the guts. He couldn't believe his mom would stoop so low. "Oh no, Mom, hope it's not what I'm thinking," Maxwell muttered, his mind racing with the implications. He turned to Tracy, who was standing in the doorway, a smug look on her face. "I said it before, and I am still saying it now. I don't and will never have anything to do with you, Tracy. I am a happily married man, and I don't ever want to set my eyes on you again. You can stay here and marry my mother for all I care." With that, Maxwell turned and stormed out of the house, leaving his mom and Tracy behind. He couldn't bear to look at either of them right now. He needed to get back to his house. Jane and Maxwell sat in the doctor's office holding hands and trying to stay positive. They had been through so much already, and they were willing to do anything to start a family. Doctor, we have tried everything, Jane said, her voice shaking. What else can we do? The doctor nodded sympathetically. I understand your struggles, Jane, and I think I have a solution that might work for you. What is it? Maxwell asked, his eyes hopeful. I recommend using a surrogate mother, the doctor said gently. Jane, your body is not capable of carrying a pregnancy to term, but with a surrogate, you can still have a biological child. Jane's eyes widened in surprise. A surrogate? I've never considered that. It's a great option, the doctor said. You can use your own eggs and Maxwell's sperm, and the surrogate will carry the pregnancy. It's a beautiful way to have your children. Maxwell squeezed Jane's hand. What do you think, Jane? Is this something you are comfortable with? Jane took a deep breath. She had always imagined carrying her own child, but now that seemed impossible. But with a surrogate, maybe this was the answer to their prayers. Yes, she said finally, let's do it. The doctor smiled. I'll connect you with a surrogacy agency and we can start the process. It will take some time, but I promise you, it will be worth it. Jane and Maxwell left the doctor's office feeling a sense of hope they hadn't felt in years. They knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to take the next step towards building their family. Jane sat in her mother's cozy living room, sipping tea. She had come to visit her mother to confide in her about their plans to use a surrogate mother. Mom, I need to talk to you about something, Jane said. As you know, Maxwell and I have been trying to have a baby for some years, but it's just not happening. We have decided to use a surrogate mother. Her mother's expression changed from curious to surprised. A surrogate? Oh, Jane, I hadn't expected that. Jane nodded. I know it's not the traditional way, but we are desperate to start a family, and that's not all. I am scared, Mom. I am scared of using just anybody without knowing much about them. What if they are not healthy? What if they are not trustworthy? Her mother listened attentively, her eyes filled with understanding. Then, to Jane's shock, she said, Jane, I want to be your surrogate. Jane's jaw dropped. Mom, what? No, you can't be serious. Her mother smiled warmly. Why not? I am healthy. I am willing and I am family. Who is better to carry your child than me? Jane's eyes widened in surprise. Mom, are you sure? I mean, you are older now. Can you still carry a child? Her mother chuckled. Jane, I may be older, but I am still healthy and strong. And I've always taken care of myself. I am sure I can carry a child to term. Jane looked concerned. But Mom, you are 51. That's quite advanced for pregnancy, isn't it? Her mother waved her hand dismissively. Age is just a number, Jane. I have seen women older than me have healthy pregnancies and think about it, Jane. I've already raised you and your siblings. I know what I am doing. Jane couldn't help but laugh at her mother's confidence, tears welling up in her eyes. Mom, are you sure? Jane asked again. Her mother nodded. Absolutely, dear. I want to help you and Maxwell build your family. Let's do this. Jane was stunned. She had never considered her mother as an option, but now that she thought about it, it made perfect sense. Her mother was the most selfless person she knew, and this would be the ultimate act of love. Okay, Mom, if you are sure, then let's do it. Her mother grinned. I am positive, dear. Now, let's go talk to Maxwell and start making plans. Jane's heart swelled with gratitude and love for her mother. She knew this wasn't going to be an easy journey, but with her mother by her side, she felt like she could face anything. Jane returned home and broke the news to Maxwell. Honey, you won't believe what my mom just offered to do. Maxwell looked at her curiously. What is it? Jane hesitated for a moment before blurting it out. She wants to be our surrogate mom. Maxwell's eyes widened in surprise. What? Maxwell's expression turned serious. I am happy she is willing to do this for us, but I have to admit, I am a bit concerned. Your mom is older, Jane. Can she really handle a pregnancy at her age? Jane nodded. I know it's a lot to take in, but mom is insistent. She says she's healthy and strong enough to carry a baby for 9 months. Maxwell nodded thoughtfully. Okay, if your mom is sure she can do this, then I trust her. But we need to make sure she's getting the best medical care possible. Jane nodded in agreement. Absolutely. We will make sure she is in good hands. Despite their initial concerns, Maxwell and Jane were both excited and grateful for Jane's mother's selfless offer. They knew it wouldn't be an easy journey, but they were ready to face it together as a family. With the surrogacy process complete, Jane's mother underwent a series of tests and examinations to confirm the pregnancy. Finally, the day arrived when they received the news they had all been waiting for. Jane's mother was pregnant. Jane and Maxwell were overjoyed. They had never felt so happy and relieved in their lives. They immediately began making preparations for the arrival of their baby, reading up on parenting books, attending prenatal classes, and setting up the nursery. Throughout the pregnancy, Jane and Maxwell took exceptional care of Jane's mother, ensuring she received the best medical attention and support. They accompanied her to every doctor's appointment, asked questions, and took notes. They also made sure she ate healthy foods, got plenty of rest, and stayed comfortable. As the months passed, Jane's mother blossomed with pregnancy. She glowed with happiness and her health remained robust. Jane and Maxwell were grateful for her selflessness and loved her even more for it. With each passing day, Jane's mother's belly grew, and so did their love and anticipation. They knew that their baby was lucky to have such a wonderful grandmother and role model in their lives. Jane and her mother had always been close, but during the pregnancy, their bond grew even stronger. They would spend hours talking, laughing, and praying together. Jane would often ask her mother to pray with her, seeking God's protection and guidance for both her mother and the baby. As the pregnancy progressed, Jane's prayers became more fervent. She would pray for her mother's comfort and well-being, asking God to ease any discomfort or pain she might be experiencing. She would also pray for the baby's development and growth, asking God to protect and guide them both. One day, as they were praying together, Jane's mother placed her hand on her belly and said, Jane, I feel like God is telling me that everything will be okay, that He has got us in His hands. Jane smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. I know, Mom, I feel it too. God is with us and He will see us through this journey. Their prayers became a source of strength and comfort, a reminder that they were not alone in this journey. And as they prayed, they knew that God was listening, guiding, and protecting them every step of the way. As the 9th month arrived, Jane's mother's belly was ripe and ready to burst. Finally, the day arrived and she gave birth to two beautiful babies, a boy and a girl. The joy and celebration in Maxwell's house were palpable. Maxwell's mother was over the moon, holding her two new grandchildren in her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. Oh, my babies, she exclaimed. I am so sorry for all the troubles I caused. I was so wrong to doubt Jane and Maxwell's love. They are perfect parents, and these two little ones are the blessings of our family. Maxwell and Jane were beaming with pride, holding their newborns close. We love you, Mom, Jane said, and we forgive you. Jane's mother nodded, her eyes shining with tears. I was so blind, but now I see. You two are meant to be together, and these babies are the proof of your love. The house was filled with laughter, tears, and celebrations as they welcomed the new additions to the family. Maxwell's mother couldn't believe she had become a grandmother to two beautiful babies, and she spent hours cuddling, feeding, and playing with them. Just when the family thought their joy was complete, Tracy appeared from nowhere with a 3-month-old baby boy. When they heard a knock at the door, Maxwell went to open the door, but to his greatest surprise, he saw Tracy standing at the door with a baby. Hello, Maxwell. Tracy, you again? What are you doing in my house? I came to let you know we have a baby together, Maxwell. Maxwell's face turned pale as he stumbled backward, his eyes fixed on the baby in Tracy's arms. His mind racing. He tried to process what he was seeing. What are you talking about, Tracy? This can't be true. Tracy's expression was calm, but her voice was firm. I am not joking, Maxwell. This is your son. I think you deserve to know. Maxwell's wife, Jane, appeared beside him, concern etched on her face. What's going on here? Tracy repeated her statement. This is Maxwell's son. I gave birth to him 3 months ago. Jane's eyes widened in shock as she looked at Maxwell. Then back to Tracy. How is this possible? Maxwell, what's going on? Jane's voice trembled with anger and hurt as she turned to Maxwell. Tell me this is not true. Tell me this is a joke. You mean you have been cheating on me all this while? God, I am finished. Maxwell's face contorted in distress as he pleaded with Jane. No, Jane, it's not what you think. Let me explain, please. But Jane was beyond consolation. Explain? Explain what? That you have been lying to me all these years? That you have a child with another woman? Tracy, sensing the escalating tension, spoke up. Jane, I am sorry. I didn't mean to cause any pain. This was a mistake, a one-time mistake. Jane's gaze turned icy as she glared at Tracy. You are sorry? You are sorry. You have ruined my life and you are sorry? Maxwell tried to intervene, but Jane pushed him away. Don't touch me. You have been touching her, lying to me, and now you have a child with her. The room was filled with the sound of Jane's sobs, as the family's world seemed to crumble around them. Maxwell left to his mother's house immediately. Mom, you have ruined my life. I am finished, Mom. Where do I start from here? He was crying bitterly. His mother was taken aback by her son's distress. She had never seen him so broken. She quickly ushered him into the house, trying to calm him down. Maxwell, what's going on? What happened? Maxwell collapsed on the couch, his body shaking with sobs. Mom, my life is over. Tracy showed up at my doorstep with a baby, claiming I am the father. His mother's expression turned from concern to shock. What? That's impossible. She would have told me if she had a child on the way. Mrs. Smith's face hardened. Determination etched on her features. We will get to the bottom of this, Maxwell. I don't believe Tracy's claims. Maxwell shook his head, feeling hopeless. What if it's true, Mom? What if I am the father? His mother placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Even if you are, we will face this together. But I have a feeling there is more to this story. Tracy's timing seems suspicious. We will investigate and if necessary, we will take a paternity test to clear this up. Maxwell nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe his mother was right. Tracy's laughter echoed through her sitting room, a wicked grin spreading across her face. Oh, Maxwell, you thought you could just discard me like trash? You thought you could move on with your perfect little life? Marrying that insipid woman and starting a family? She scoffed, her eyes gleaming with malice. You promised me marriage, Maxwell. You promised me forever. But when I made one mistake, you couldn't forgive me. I only cheated once and that was it. I begged you, but you never accepted me back. You couldn't even try. Tracy's voice dripped with venom. And then, to add insult to injury, you married that Jane, thinking you are so much better than me. But fate has a way of evening the score, doesn't it? Your precious mother, so desperate for a grandchild, played right into my hands. She arranged our meeting, thinking she was doing me a favor. Ha! Me, Tracy. Tracy's laughter grew louder. Now I'll make sure your marriage is destroyed. I'll make sure you are stuck raising another man's child. You will pay for what you did to me, Maxwell. Oh yes, you will pay dearly. Maxwell's mother sat beside Jane, her eyes filled with remorse. I am so sorry, Jane. I never meant to hurt you or your marriage. I was blinded by my desire for a grandchild. Jane's voice trembled. How could you do this to us, Mom? You have ruined our happiness." She took Jane's hands in her hand. "No, my daughter, I don't think I have. I have a feeling that Maxwell is not the father of Tracy's child. Something isn't right here." Jane's tears slowed, replaced by a glimmer of hope. "What do you mean?" "I think Tracy is manipulating us. I think she's using this child to get back to Maxwell for whatever reason. We need to find out the truth." Jane's face set in a firm resolve. "I'll work with you, Mom. Let's find out the real truth. And we will get a paternity test to settle this once and for all." Tracy's heart skipped a beat as she received the call from Maxwell's mother. "Tracy, dear, I think it's time we cleared the air. Please bring your son to Maxwell's house and we will discuss everything." Tracy couldn't contain her joy. Her plan was working perfectly. She would finally get the revenge she sought, and Maxwell would be forced to take responsibility for her child. She arrived at Maxwell's house with her son and was welcomed by Mrs. Smith and Jane. As she sat in the living room, Maxwell's mother smiled warmly at the baby. "Oh, he's so adorable. May I hold him?" Tracy hesitated for a moment before handing over her son. As she cuddled the baby, Jane excused herself to get some refreshments. Unbeknownst to Tracy, Jane was actually trying to distract her attention. Jane returned with a tray of drinks. "Here, let's all calm down and talk this through." As Jane approached Tracy with the tray of drinks, Mrs. Smith saw her chance. With a swift and subtle motion, she snipped a small lock of hair from the baby's head, careful not to alert Tracy. Meanwhile, Jane handed Tracy a cup of drink, diverting her attention. "Here, Tracy, I hope you like the drink." Tracy took the cup, smiling swiftly. "Thank you, Jane. You are too kind." Just then, Mrs. Smith's phone rang. She answered, listening for a moment before speaking. "I am so sorry, Tracy, but Maxwell just called. He's been held up at work and won't be able to make it home early." Tracy's face fell, but she continued. "So, let's postpone our discussion until another time. I will call you." The DNA result was out, and Maxwell's mother trembled as she opened the paper. She scanned the page, her eyes widening with excitement. "It's not him, Jane. Maxwell is not the father." Jane let out a square of delight, her happiness restored. "Oh, thank God." Mrs. Smith beamed, tears of joy swelling up in her eyes. "I am so sorry, Jane. I was so blind. I put my family through hell for nothing." Just then, Maxwell walked through the door, exhausted from work. His mother rushed to him, the DNA results clenched in her hand. "Maxwell, I have something to tell you. You are not the biological father of Tracy's child." Maxwell's eyes widened in shock. "Are you serious, Mom? Tell me you are serious." His mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I am very serious, my son, and I am so sorry for everything I put this family through. I was wrong, and I am truly sorry." Maxwell's face transformed from shock to relief, and finally to joy. He swept Jane into his arms, spinning her around in a circle. "We are finally free from this nightmare." Jane laughed, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "We are finally free." The family invited Tracy back, feeling concerned about the child's paternity. "We just want to make sure, Tracy. Let's do a DNA test to confirm Maxwell is the father." Tracy's eyes narrowed. "You think I am lying? You think I'll deceive you like that?" Jane stepped forward, her voice firm. "That's exactly what we think, Tracy. You are trying to ruin our lives with your lies." Tracy's face twisted in anger. "Maxwell is the father of my child, and you regret accusing me like this." But Maxwell's mother was ready. She handed Tracy the DNA test results, and the woman's face turned white. "You deceived me. You tricked me into bringing my child here just for this?" Maxwell stood, his voice firm. "Tracy, it's time to leave. You need to heal from whatever is driving you to hurt others. But know this, the next time you try evil, it will consume you." Tracy's eyes blazed with anger, but she knew she was beaten. She snatched her child and stormed out, leaving the family in peace. As the door closed, the family shared a sigh of relief. They had finally closed the door on Tracy's deceit. Maxwell wrapped his arms around his family, holding them close. We are in this together always. And so, the family lived happily ever after, their bond stronger than ever.